this is going to be my little test run. This is going to be like one book. This is like the early days from his first race car to several he built, and our history and heritage. So this is all got to go in his book because it tells a lot that's important about our life and where we started building cars. These are all Ronnie Bouchard's cars, if you haven't guessed. And they all went to championships as far as I know, except for the 35 on the top right hand corner. I will have my bag clarified. That was Kenny. The fact that you can run a 13.9 here is almost criminal. Because I know I've seen that car as a child. Those little white stripes by the number. I was about that tall. So I remember seeing them, but I don't know if Dad built that. Kind of looks like my old Nova, but my old Nova was a four-door. Kenny Bouchard used my first car I wrecked my ass in. Let me see. I got Mello up there. Oh, I got something I gotta do. I know, Chris told me about this. See how I'm learning? I'm looking at pictures I wanted to show you. You're watching Mello race, but that's not bad. That's not a bad thing. I think, unless I'm on delay. Let me just check what OBS is looking like. Oh, we're right. You there? You good? Just my replay is behind the scenes here. But the little bit of book I wrote is behind me. And I don't know if I've actually penned it in the book, but this is things I want to include. This is my mom and my dad today. And that's Dick Kangas. And this is going to be a biography of his life, and I didn't know how to do it because it's not going to be about titles and who and what. He worked with everybody so much that it's hard for me to remember them all. But this is some roots. This is some history. His great-grandfather. This picture is the same. Some of the same people in this. 1, 2, 3. These three are in this picture. But this is my dad's great-grandfather and great-grandmother, which I knew all the way up until I was in my 30s. They lived a long, long life, and I hope I take after that side. I think I do. Anyway, this person here is my grandmother, who lived into about 96, 97 years old, and just passed away within the last 5 years. As I get older, and I'm 60, going to be 61 soon, I forget many things, but they are the fifth generation. I mean, the first generation. She's second. My dad's third. I'm fourth generation from Finland. This is the cold winter days. This is his This is my dad's grandfather, my great-grandfather, great-grandpa Gala, great-grandma Selena. This is Uncle Gene. This is Uncle Walter, and this is my grandmother, Ellen. And same pictures of people. We spent many Christmases in this home. This home is located on the property where my dad grew up. This is my dad's childhood home. And right over here to this side would be his race shop, which started here. And that was Grandpa Gala. And his gas pumps. He had gasoline for 20.9 cents a gallon. And that ended up being a Citgo station. This is one of my dad's cars he built. This has a long history of running and winning in Brookline Speedway, the Pines, Arundel, and let me see. It raced at Hudson Speedway. It raced at Star in Epping. It raced at Westboro Speedway in Westboro, Massachusetts. Tinker Prochin drove that car. But anyway, I remember playing in this car, like it in here. This was my jungle gym, basically. Playpen. I was about 3. I remember hanging on to the door, standing up. It probably came to here. So this exact same location. He also had something to do with building this car. This one here, this is how I've been finding some of these cars. They just popping up online. The photo was taken at Westboro. This man was nice enough to post it. My dad replied to him anyway. Forgot what year. I even forgot the driver's name. I was told it was Tinker Prochin, but don't know. I have another picture to say. What this car is, this is Leo Sharon and his wife, and they owned this realty. So my dad knows details, but this was a car my dad also, I believe, if he didn't build it, he reworked it. Let's see. That has a trophy. That means they won. Everything my dad put his hands on won, and it's just something we thought everybody did, and we were just brought up to believe that's what you do. This gas station right here is how it looks today. This is today, and this I believe was 1940s. The same location. The only difference is the home in the background is gone. That was my great-grandmother's house. My grandmother's house, my dad's home, was here. This is in the town of Lunenburg. My dad's parents. And let me go back. All right. That's kind of the beginning. Let's see. This is also it. If you pictured this car in this driveway, in that building back there, that's about right here. But this was 1962. We still have this trophy. This is from the Connecticut driveway. My dad began some racing in the early 60s for drag racing, and he also did some ice racing. I have to get the picture of that off of the video. I have a video that I can bring up of that when we look at things, but I'm just going through my pictures. This man is a very important man in my dad's life as far as racing. His name is Marty Hardy, Harty, and he was stationed in Italy, and he studied Formula One race cars, brought the Formula One series, and not Formula One, the series designs for the A-frames and how everything in the front end geometry was designed. And that is why I have a photo of him in here as well. And I have a few more of him earlier, and his son, who we have contact with at times. This is my mom, my dad's mom, my grandmother, in her 90s. Very, very smart woman, and there's a picture I have of her talking to me via Skype as the last time we spoke. This is my mom's family, also from Finland. So we grew up in an area of New England that was French and Finnish, and the French end of town was the Bouchards, which he met at the racetrack. This is Ronnie. Oh man, let me see. That gets small because I just screenshot things. This is Ronnie. This car here. See the spoiler on the back? This car won championships, and it also raced at Stafford Springs. And I believe it raced at possibly Daytona Road and possibly Trenton. But my dad will fill us in on that. Maybe Pocono too. I'm trying to remember. I believe Trenton. Maybe. Let me see. I know definitely Stafford. I might be thinking of the Armstrong Camaro. Yeah, that Armstrong Camaro is one that run Trenton. I believe. Anyway, this garage here. This is me as a child, and my sister, and my other sister, and my mom. This is Marty Hardy's brother John's truck. He sold tools and toys. We got toys every time he sold tools. And you see this engine puller. This car is cool. It was our transportation back then. And this car here, garage here, was my dad's second garage. That's why that photograph is there. And this is another picture of that winning car in that garage. And he built several cars. I've got pictures of some. My childhood was spent probably for the first 12 years between the house that used to be here, this driveway, these garages, and this home here. Playing all in the woods. Some of these race cars could have been out there for years. But anyway, that's kind of the early beginning. This is my father. About 4, leaning in that in turns, you know. Always going fast. You turn and turn left. It's so funny. But let me see. Here is some more Ronnie. This is the one that we saw in the garage. Also, maybe a revamped number. Maybe for the they raced the same car. I think 2 years, maybe 3. It may have looked like this when we took it to Stafford. He finished 3rd. So, let me just hit done. This I kept here because this is also another early Ronnie, but this is more 71. And this is when Dick Armstrong noticed the talent he had. They went and ran that open show at Stafford. And the car says Hop, because Hop Harrington was working and driving. But Dick had asked Hop to prepare the car for Ronnie, and Ronnie always took my dad along to prepare cars as well. It was, if Ronnie was there, my dad was there on anything new. They just understood each other. My dad chassis-wise and Ronnie driving-wise. It was one of them perfect scenarios. Ronnie was a really good, smooth driver. Smooth, hardly ever wrecked. I don't know how he did it, but he won so much and hardly ever wrecked. Probably one of the best talents that was smart enough to get out early enough before, you know, he's very successful. He was very successful in automotive and driving and living on the road can get really, really old after a couple of years. I did it 2 years It was nice to have a break. I never thought I'd break for as long as I did, which is pretty much forever. But I do like going to the short tracks so much more. The attitude, the credentials, the this, the that. This stuff's so much more fun. There I am, 1971. It was the year we went over to Stafford Springs because we were the champion here. We were all part of my mom and stuff made these for the fan club. Um, the art piece might have been done by my Uncle Leo. He did most of my dad's artwork for that of Ronnie. These were yellow sweatshirts. There's me, and that's my dad. My sister Cindy and my sister Justine. I'm the oldest of three between 4 years apart. And Dad was the chassis by Vic guy. And the engine by Dave guy was this man, Dave Rossback. And this is young Dave Rossback, his son. So that picture floats around everywhere, but that's of me. And this is the last racetrack I went to with Dad, but I'll show you that. So he still looks like this today, pretty much. He's had some heart work since then. This is him building shocks. He's made this mount and everything where he can actually compress and build shocks all at the same time on apparently attached to the trailer here at New Smyrna. This was 2017. And this is 2019. My mom and my two sisters and my niece. I wish they had a setup for like a big track. And let me see. We would go here. 1993. Cards, because 1992 he was the winning crew chief for Busch Grand National. He worked for Joe Nemechek on the Texas Pete number 87. This is my dad's, the back half of the race card. All the race cards. He was on 3 different cards. Max went out of business, so royalties don't exist anymore. They filed bankruptcy, but there are a lot of these cards around there floating around, but they all say the same thing on the back, that have the challenge question, and it said he will be in charge of the car preparation for defending Busch Grand National champion Joe Nemechek. And then 92, he helped Joe Nemechek's team from a promising squad to a title-winning unit. They began the season with Nemechek experienced a fire and crash at Daytona Beach, Florida. After starting on the outside pole later, after Nemechek scored his first 2 career wins at Indianapolis. Now that's Indianapolis Raceway Park, IRP, Lucas Oil. My dad won with Joe there, and Loudon, New Hampshire. My eyes are bad. Which is New Hampshire International Speedway, which is NHIS. And the team finished 6th for the year in the final race at Hickory to win the VGN title by 3 points. Now, I do have that race. That last Hickory race, he was beat to heck that entire race. It was just meant to be. They won the championship. There was just nothing else that could define it, because they dug and dug and dug. The car had a fender hanging off as it drove into the championship title line, and I think I believe Bobby might have won it, Bobby Labonte, or Jeff Gordon, one or the other. Anyway, it says here he worked for several Winston Cup teams, including Whitcomb Racing, that'd be Bob Whitcomb, and Dingman Brothers Racing, which was also an IMSA team when he started with them, and he branched them out to both IMSA and Cup Racing, actually, with Ronnie Bouchard again, Greg Sachs, Tommy Riggins. And my dad has a lot of details of that. That's stuff I want to go over too. When I get my dad on, he can like fill in the blanks. But after a little bit, I'm gonna clip some of this and have him watch it and see what's up. He worked for so many people though. If they needed help, like okay, in the pits that year they won the championship, or possibly the year after. It was the Dentine car. Kenny Wallace jumped in the seat and tried Joe's car, and Joe jumped in Kenny's seat and tried that car during some practice time and checked each other out. And Kenny was really happy with how it felt. And my dad also went to the last BGN, I believe it was BGN. It was the Spring 300 or something. I've got that on tape too here off of somebody's website. I can give links later, but go to my YouTube. They're all on there. For those people, I just shared this stuff. We have our own, but we have yet to download those races. Anyway, you can go on there and see the race. Volusia County Speedway was still asphalt, and Kenny Wallace won, and my dad helped him out with some of the things. Just if he's walking by and someone needs a hand, he helps him out. He wants to see people race fast. He doesn't care. Doesn't care about titles. This is why it was so hard to do this biography. My dad won also the New England Auto Races Hall of Fame award. There's a lot of big names in there, but he was nominated, and the ceremony was 2012. This is our family at the awards banquet in Hartford. There's me, my sister Cindy, my mom, my dad, Justine, and the infamous plaque he has still on his wall. In his office, he's still working. And this is the presenter, Mr. Kenny Bouchard, Lonnie's younger brother, which my dad also broke cars for, with us. We just grew up with him. He was just like a big old uncle. There's Cindy and Kenny and myself and Justine. Another great photo. Celebrating Dad. And this was 95. I'd be able to go to the track and jump across to the BGN. I worked for Spam Racing then, obvious. My friend Kathy, she worked for J.D. Gibbs. She was his assistant and also team scorer. We were both team scorers. And she'd show me where a lot of the scoring towers were, because I was only a sub and I didn't know. I worked for 2 years, like pretty steady, but a lot of the tracks were new and I didn't know where the scoring towers were. Anyway, that's she's awesome. She's in California. Lori, why did I say California? And that was at Daytona. We drove down together from North Carolina. This was when my dad won in Loudon. This is my son Christopher and myself. Him in the Winston Cup shirt. Who would have thought those? We probably donated to Goodwill. Back in the day, we had so much of that stuff. Everything was just donated. I'm glad somebody might enjoy them today. And as to close up the family part, the heritage, the fun, the racing family, the people in this little piece right here, all from the old days in Massachusetts of our racing. This is, he worked on the Caruso cars. This is my sister Cindy. Well, or he was the Caruso's best friend. Grew up with David. This is my sister Cindy, my mom, Sandra, my dad, Vic, and it'll load in a minute. You jump back here, this same people. So it doesn't have to load. These are the same people, all our New England race family. This is my dad, and me. This man is David Cruz's best friend, Dave. This is Mario. He worked on race cars for Ronnie Bouchard. This is Joey. He worked on race cars for Ronnie Bouchard, Pete Fiandaca, and many of the other Fitchburg people. These are all the Fitchburg crew. This is Mario's son. He said my sister Cindy, another one of the friends from the whole Massachusetts crew. And we get together here. This is Speed Weeks 2022. And of course, it'll be really quick. Do I have across the table? Yeah, probably. So, same people, just a little anime. Animate's better just right there. Just always like to get together, have a nice social visit when people are in town. We used that today, enjoying the camping center. They like to travel. So, yeah.
I mean, it's, I don't know. I think
that is
if it
the,
just didn't feel so awkward, it'd be really fun, but it's just...
I guess best I can do right there. That is the beginning of the racing history. And pictures.
Yeah, it might be a case where, again, like, the setups are, like, bottoming out.
What I'm going to do is jump here. Go back. We enjoyed the music. And it's just going to keep going backwards, isn't it?
I mean, it's just like, yeah, you can see, like, every
Good
just little
song.
nook and cranny of the track
Right,
makes
my
it feel,
channel.
literally all of
My
it.
channel is nothing special. I'm not going for any great points. If you want to look at stuff, great. It's just links to people's stuff. I'll put this video on here too, so it'll be archived for later. It's just links to stuff. Like I said.
Can you race for Firecracker when? Logan, that is a great question. I wish I had.
This is some of the playlist that I have here. Is most of Dad's stuff.
Great question. I wish I knew the answer.
Kind of help me fill in the blanks. Help me fill in the blanks. When I showed you about Brookline Speedway, my dad owned his first race car at the age of 14. He bought it for $15. He raced it at this racetrack as well. This is kind of a historical society presentation. It does have closed captions, so we can turn the mute off in case there's anything, any type. It says the auto racing track was a short quarter-mile oval that operated between 1957 and 1965. In 1957, my dad bought his first race car to race at this track. April 13, 2016, this piece was done by these people that was about the history of the town. And they talked about, first question, thinking back before the speedway was ever established. What were the attitudes of the people when the idea of the speedway came up? How did the people in Brookline feel? And he said that the general consensus was 60 to 75% were against it. No, were for it, and 25 against it. They did fight and end up there's quiet protests of the town about the sounds. These people were interviewed. I don't want to go into all that. I just want to get to the racing. The old light was operational. There,
Excuse me. Alright, well,
the old
so I
light
managed to
was
waste an hour of
operational
time
when
without running anything, so
this
that
was
just means I can
running.
run 87s
I
again.
remember this vaguely in my mind, being
And it
here.
won't fully surprise us. If
I
it goes
remember
first.
my Aunt Dottie, my Uncle Al at the time, maybe Glenn as a baby here. Maybe. This was one car that has a history with my dad's group from Fitchburg. Pete Salvatore owned that car. And Ronnie Bouchard drove it for the first time at the age of 14 here. So let's see. I'm going to look here. There's pictures on me driving.
On this session to get loaded.
And it says Ronnie Bouchard, age 12, in 1962. He was 14. 2 years later, he drove this very car.
Thank you all for watching.
So the roots go far back. That's why I called this part of the book Roots. It was believed to be the fastest quarter mile in New England. I believe they have race footage. I'll turn the sound on for that. Other pictures. This is what it looks like today. Closed shortly after 1965. So I was 4 years old, and after this closed, I remember us going south to Florida for about 10 months to a year, maybe longer, a season and a half, till racing season started again in Massachusetts. But you can vaguely see right back in there, where the older trees are, was the back line of the track. Let me see. Parachuting. I remember that. That's weird. It's 1961. I just don't know that there is any footage of the actual cars going. Would have been there. Oh, did you see that?
By the end of summer was the original quote we were given, so September 22nd probably. Yeah, as soon as I announced
I don't believe that there's any footage of that track actually racing.
firecrackers happening on the same day.
This will be fun though.
They took that off their Twitter.
This was about the same time and a lot of the same track. A lot of the same cars we used. Now my dad said he drove, this is the one place he drove. I said, when did you ever drive a race car? And he said, once he drove at Whalen Ice Racing. He said he had a car that looked like a skunk, which I think that might be similar, if not it. That he pulled it from the woods. He said it was black and white, painted like a skunk, and he said he won. So to me, this is fun. to look back at these old races, because that looks like he gave the halfway to that black and white car. So I don't know if this is the race or not. I just did a wild search. It might be like finding a needle in a haystack, but when I show this to Dad, right there, I'm going to ask him if that's his car.
I don't even remember if it was that great.
If it is, it'd be wicked wild.
Particularly special, so I don't know. Yep, 5 people right now. How many do we need for it to go official? 6? We need somebody to pull through.
Didn't click like
at the last second. That'd be good.
To me, that stuff's cool. So that fills in that little blank.
Low quality even by
Look at him
standards.
putting him in first place. So, man, I hope that was Dad's car. That would be so
I'm the
good.
type of person that would rather eat at a barbecue place that looks like its sanitation score is a D-. Those are usually the best places.
The ice never got thick enough to do this again. I think they tried to do it and the plow fell through, and that was the end of that. It seems to me that's the rumor.
Not bad, but it's not spectacular. There's one place in Durham that has like this real like hickory smoke flavor, and man, it is good. It is so good.
I remember going here. I remember standing way over here on this side of the lake on these metal poles watching this. So I had to have been about, he said it was 62 or 3, so I had to have been like 2 or 3, 63 or 4, maybe 63 or 4, because 65 I went south to Florida. I believe I was 4 years old. It's the first time I did a long stream and talking.
Dickies, or I've never even heard of that place. North Carolina, you got a lot of barbecue places around, so which there's all different styles too. Like everybody thinks like Eastern North Carolina barbecue. Like
go to Connecticut Dragway. This is the place where that trophy
that stuff, it's not bad, but I kind of
was
like
won.
Sweeter type of barbecue. I'm not as much of a fan of like the Eastern vinegar flavored barbecue as much as the next person. Now I'll eat it, and I think it's good, but
this is where the trophy. I'll show you again the trophy. This one. This is the car that raced at Connecticut Dragway and in Canada. So we got to try to see. I don't know if it's here.
I think that means it's official. If there's 6, I think it's official.
I've slowly tried to look through this, and I've sent it to Dad, and he thought he may have glimpsed, but I remember being here. Remember, this is the place I remember being on a yellow blanket near a fence with wood, and the cars, noise, not seeing the cars, but seeing, like, hearing them, Look at these things. I really hope I was there. I remember the cars being between the cars on a blanket, like on the grass. Remember touching the grass as a baby, maybe 9 months old. But so much of this just seems so familiar. The day, the temperature, like I can almost smell that time of year. It's just a really weird sensation seeing the photos and just knowing that I was probably there. Never mind those. I get all these prank calls. My knees get super sore. I walked the beach about 1.5 miles yesterday with Stella. I wanted to go 2 miles and I couldn't do it. So it really made me feel kind of sore today, sore in my knees, and it wipes out my energy. But I definitely need to wrap them and probably ice them when I end this stream. But I wanted to do kind of a videography of the things I found for just where did I come from, where did our racing background come from in the beginning. And as you see, my dad did anything that went fast, any type of sport, whether it be in a straight line or on ice or in a round circle. But when I came along in 61, he was not really the one that wanted to be the driver anyway, even prior. And upset about my mouse. I need a sip. I am so dry in my throat from talking. But it just makes me very happy to look at these old things and kind of feel the vibe that I was feeling when I was there. It's all just so familiar. People are dialing and dialing. I have never registered that phone to anyone, so Florida numbers dial that all the time and send me stuff. I might have to change my number before I give all that one out. I've done so many number blocks on a brand new phone. I've had 2 weeks. But anyway, that's a brief synopsis of that little car. Let's go down here and see what else we got. Some more of Connecticut Dragway. May have been a later date, but it's still cool. May have not been. I'll have to ask Dad if this was when we went there. But these vehicles a little bit older. They look like 64s. Those curved windows and such. Maybe 63s. Might be. Trying to think if that was an olden days that they're racing new cars that look old now. Like that's a 56. I think. It looked like a fire dome. I know where one of them is. I just think it's the coolest. Those are the coolest things.
Alright, so this race will be official. As indicated right there, race official.
So anyway, that's some more
of
that. This one I like a little bit. And this is Westboro Speedway.
Yeah, they wanted to. Yeah, and that's usually what happens. Is they think that like they're getting screwed over.
This track, it was such a big deal to tear it down and sell it to be a shopping mall, and that shopping mall sits almost vacant, empty now. And it makes me want to just get a pit in my stomach. This was one of the best tracks ever made, ever raced. For learning, I wish they could somehow virtually duplicate it from some of these videos that people have had. This would be such a cool sim racetrack. Westboro Speedway, the place to be on a Saturday night. Westboro Speedway. This is the track. I spent a lot of Saturday nights as a teenager here too when we traveled the tracks. Isn't that beautiful? Look at that bank. Look at it downhill and uphill on the back stretch. They assume a lot of risk in doing that, and they could make a lot of money or lose a lot of money. Cook Series prediction: who's going to win tonight at the Glen? I mean, He's in some
I feel like
film in the
it's
later
gotta be
part
different
of
now,
this
you know? Like I just
thing, which is also
I think
linked
for
on
me
my
it's been so
page.
long since he's won a road course. He's been so consistent throughout all his time. I know Wilson's won. I know Graham's won. I know he didn't win at the street course last time out because he got wrecked. But I'm just gonna ride with him until he wins one of these things eventually.
Now this man
Feeling the bacon machine, Stephen
right
Wilson.
here is
You know, it's
Ronnie
not a bad
Bouchard's
pick. It's really
dad.
not.
He sponsored it.
I think there's been this influx of contenders to it.
What's up, Scully?
I mean, Bobby's up there. I think Mitchell is probably ahead of Bobby in the NASCAR stuff when it comes to road courses. But
Okay, I'm going to pause this right here. This man right here is Christopher's great uncle. Christopher's father's uncle is Fats Crusoe. And this was one of Fats's Falcone brother rides. The Falcone brothers owned the Speedway and ran the Speedway. And usually, I believe that Borden drove this. But somebody was out on an injury or for some reason. Anyway, Fats was one of the sub drivers that actually drove in the what they call Grand National Racing, which turned into Winston Cup today, and he raced against people like Tiny Lund and Bobby Ellison and such. But I have a whole documentary on his life too, where he got in a really bad wreck and was never the driver he had always wanted to be. And the family had thought, he was going to the top because he won everything he raced, and he just had it. And after that wreck, he wasn't all that he was, but my dad, knowing the history, felt compassionate to want to help him build a car and win again. And I believe they won the Westboro Championship or something like that. But there's a picture of the car that my dad worked on, and I believe there's a picture of my dad in the background of that car. In some of the parts about what I'm going to do later about how our family had branched out into other racing families, probably at the end of the book. But anyway, this is Mario Fats Caruso winning at Westboro in the Falcone Brothers number 10 coupe. That's a 5-window coupe, 1, 2 on each side and a back window, which they ran 3-window and 5-window coupes before the Vegas and Pintos and the Cavaliers and what the modifieds have become today. So this is like actually showing the transition from those ice racing jalopies and the cars on Brookline Speedway to transform to these modifieds. You just put a bigger block motor in. I believe we did that with the old car in front of the Sicko sign. We put a flathead motor and ran, I believe, Malta, Albany, Syracuse, and that became a modified. So it's the transition of how the Whelen Modified Tour became the Whelen Modified Tour that I got to actually witness, which is lucky for me. Lucky for people that are interested in hearing about it.
Let's see, is Mitchell in the top 20 in points? Yeah, he's 13th. So
I've been to Reno Tulonen's garage. Reno Tulonen. We called it Reno Tulonen. The finished. This is right here. Fats Caruso again. Looks like 1, 2, 3 maybe.
Yeah, Dylan was about to win the Open. Garrett Baines ain't a bad road course driver. He's 14th in points.
They had, instead of the modifieds, they were Class A, Class B, and Class C.
There's a lot that can happen here. I don't really see anybody on like the bottom half of the standings really having some shocking winning run. There could be some good ones.
Midgets.
There's not like any true super road course drivers, I think, down here.
I used to enjoy watching them. I like the Badger car that were raced.
I feel bad for Caden Honeycutt, man. He's had
we lost
I feel like half the races he queues up for, he doesn't even make it past lap 2 either because he gets wrecked or he falls out or something. Like, he's had an unbelievable amount of luck. I didn't realize he
I
had luck
say,
as a starting point.
early modified. B car would have been,
I think it's interesting looking at the bottom 20 though. So
I guess,
Derek was in pro last year. Kyle,
similar
Caden,
to a late model.
Nick, Colin, Bordeaux, Blade Whip was in pro.
Back then, I would say. Trying to think of how they were built. They were more of a full frame.
Brian was.
I believe that the
Reverton was.
modifieds were a partial fabricated frame. And then they became a full. That might be Kenny for sure. That kind of looks. This is what. This is where the modifieds started to become Pintos. This is a Brady family. I believe there are some Bradys that are still in racing today that own a car and maybe have a grandson racing. This team here was my dad's team. This was the big guy that was Ray Hendricks, car owner. This team is the one that raced 1974 the Daytona Road Course with Ronnie Bouchard, Ray Hendrick. I'm trying to think of Hop Harrington possibly. And anyway, this is New Style Racing, New Style #1. There were New Style Jewelry. It was owned by Dick and Carol Armstrong. We grew up with their kids and playing with them at the garage and stuff. My dad worked for them, I would say probably 4 years, it seemed, with Ray Hendrick, which I see there, Ray. I see Ronnie Bouchard. They had another car too. Oh, Jeff Bodine. Jeff Bodine ran one car. My dad ran another car with Ronnie, and Hop ran a third car, I believe, with Ray Hendrick. And so anyway, the Armstrongs had quite an operation, and they were very awesome people to work and grow up with. Anyway, let's play that game. But it was like, I didn't realize till I started putting all this stuff together how much the transition from the coupes to the Pintos. In the background there, you can even see we ran a Camaro with all these guys in our first time there. So I'm not sure if that was the roof of the white Camaro or just a passenger car. That's Fats right there. Joe Howard, and he is in Florida, and we see him occasionally. So if you won this race, you qualified for the Thompsons. This one here, I think that's still the way it was. That's a Ramstrong 35 my dad worked on at one time. Tom Dunn owned this. The T5 was a very famous ride, like the Blue 3. Got Fats right here in the middle. Right here is another one of my dad's cars. That's Billy Hood #7. Okay, as it hit the 80s, Ronnie had moved south to go racing as well as my dad did. So we're not as familiar with these older guys. But the Featherlight, see the SK Modifieds is when that started coming in. and we had gone. A lot of the big hot shoes had gone south,
Like Cozy's just the
and
type
they
of
would
guy
come
that's gonna
for
make himself
100-lap events and stuff.
stuff happen.
George Savory. This is Westboro.
Not make mistakes and put yourself in a bad spot.
I remember that the
So
pits
somebody
was
like me,
small.
like
You
I never
sometimes had
really
to
had
unload
much
your
say
car
in
outside,
road pro last year. Like, yeah, I covered
drive it in,
Bristol,
or
and there's some tracks that maybe a couple things fall a different way.
whatever
Instead of
worked.
finishing third or fourth, I maybe
These
won.
stands
But I just
sat my butt
I was
in many
never
of these
really
stands in the pit
I was never
side
really
there.
a guy that was just gonna go out and lead every lap, qualify up front.
Stood here a lot in the
Like,
pit
that's just
side.
not how I was gonna do it. So
Right
I had to
there is
kinda
the
I would
others.
qualify like shit, and I had
The
to
start
pace my
finish
way
line
through
up
the
in
field.
there
I
too.
had to make strategy calls.
Feature time, we all go sit in the stand
And
stands.
it worked. Like, I got third of the top 20, largely because I didn't paint a Watkins Glen, and that ended up being like a 10-point difference. That was the difference between me making it and not making it.
This track was awesome. It's so fast. This must have been one of them open shows because some of the guys I've seen racing there. So anyway, that's Westboro.
35th at race. Feels
Yeah.
pretty good to race your way through. Road to Pro, I could do it. And
Seekonk.
I just didn't. But like,
Seekonk was another speedway we raced at.
by far on pace.
Jump here.
I kind of outsmarted my way into pro last year. Like, I think I approached races well. Just
There might be
did
some
everything
names you've heard of.
off the track really well to put myself in a good position to make it.
We spent 4 years of my childhood here.
And I think there's a lot.
Bugsy drove the 3 at one time as well. Fred DeZero did as well. And Ronnie Bouchard did as well.
For some people, like, they're great at
He, look at that thing. That thing's gorgeous. This was a car my dad worked on with Bugsy driving. About that era. He was hired to work on that and the Vega for Bugsy. But this was Seekonk. It was called the Cement Palace. Cement Palace. I got my southern cement. Cement Palace. There's a lot of that around. And then George Summers, he was one of my dad's best friends. We lost him recently. Last year. And we lost his son last year. This was my dad's car, that one with George driving it at Oxford Plains. George was a wonderful man. Cool as heck. Went to a party at his house recently. And this is the hood car. He must have drove a little with my dad in that. Jack Tant hats for the racing motors. He was fun, man. He was fun. He drove at Oxford. He was like very good at Oxford. But anyway, I think I have got enough of this little bit of footage. I'm going to shut that one. Open this one. Shut Google's. Googly Doos. Mello is here. He might be offline now. And yeah, YouTube does cancel it out when I get too many things going. I need to jump here. Unless this stunted, it's boring. But anyway, we're gonna try this again. This is as a placeholder for me because I'm gonna clip out the middle and send it to my dad and see what he knows that I said or didn't say right or wrong. So he can